All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a super amazing show, a show I've been waiting for a long time. We have a super special guest, Kate Bradley Chernis, CEO, co-founder of Lately. I will let Kate introduce herself shortly. I just wanted to do a quick disclaimer. I am a client of Lately's or customers of Lately's. So if I fan out at some point, you know why. All right.
Hey, you guys.
Hi, thanks, Kate, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fab and Paul. It's lovely to meet you, and we're already best friends. We've discovered behind the scenes here, which is great. And it goes to the thing we talk about all the time, which is the common ground, right? So sales, marketing, general human connection in life is about finding the common ground as fast as you can, right? And understanding how to read the room and to take them on the journey, right? Because the world is made up of broadcasters and fans in my mind, right? And sometimes you're both, either way. But when you're the broadcaster or the host or the writer or the publisher, right? You have that microphone that you wield, but it's your job to make sure that the folks on the other side feel as if they have a voice. It's a two-way street, right? And so this is what I love about the weather. You guys have been to, Lately lives or office hours when we do our podcast, our webinars. We always talk about the weather and we ask people to type in, hey, where are you from? Hello from Stone Ridge, hi from Colorado. And it's because we want to get to that common ground as fast as possible so we can, smile and get excited about each other, right? Make a fan.
Connect.
Very cool.
It's interesting you say that, Kate, because I find that in sales, let's just talk sales for a second. Sure. And I say it a little differently, but what I say to people is that in sales, when you're talking to someone who doesn't know you, who feels you might be selling something to them, the most important thing is for them to feel that you care about them. So as a salesperson, you have to say, hey, what is it that's important to you, so that they feel like, oh, this salesperson's listening to me and they actually care about what's going on.
Yeah, and it's more than like Fruit Loops and what you had for breakfast. That's the tough thing that I think people don't understand. And the way that I do it, as you guys just witnessed, is I like to zag. If someone asked me the other day, like, what questions do you wish people would ask you if you could wish? And I was like, oh, I just love it when people ask me things not about the obvious, right? Just like we were doing before the show, because it gives me the opportunity to remind them that yes, I'm a CEO, and there's Lately, and there's these other things that are visible about me that you can all find out about. But I am a wife and a daughter and a sister and a auntie, and if sometimes I'm a good friend, sometimes not so much. Right, all the things that we all do, and I think that gives you the opportunity as well to make somebody walk away with more than they came to the table with.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
So, Kate, one thing we wanted to really ask you, Fab and I have been talking about this, and it's really exciting. Can you tell us a little bit about like the journey of going from, not having a business to, okay, I've got my business, and what motivated you? Of course, we want this to be a little sales and marketing oriented, but what is it that drove you, that made Kate say, I want to start this company, I want to do this, I want to offer this? Now, I know you're talking about human connection, so I'm sure that's part of it, but tell us a little bit more about what is it that motivated you to say, I'm doing this, I'm getting investors, I'm building this company, I'm putting people together, and we're building this thing.
Thanks for asking. So it was actually disconnection. I was in a really terrible place. I shared with Fab earlier that I have a partial permanent disability and I can't type at all without extreme pain. It's tendonitis and epicondylitis, so you can't have surgery on it. And it's the manifestation of stress. This is how my body manifests that. And it started manifesting when I was in radio. So I'm a recovering rock and roll DJ. My last gig was broadcasting to 20 million listeners a day for XM satellite radio, Sirius XM. And when I was there, it was a boys club, as radio is still. And sexual harassment was very much part of the deal, and I participated in it. It was normal, frankly. What I didn't was not normal was like using it to create a hostile environment, which was happened to me. And we didn't have that language then too. So it was, surprising. You couldn't really tell anybody what was happening because they didn't understand it or they didn't believe you. And so my body started shutting down. And I had, I was like in a wheelchair for like almost a year and a half or 2 years. And I had all these weird ailments and my body was just trying to say, hey, it's not working for you. Right.
Was the brain talking to your body saying, I can't do this. I'm shutting you down. Like you got to stop this. Not good for you. You're killing yourself, kind of thing. And I'm gonna make you stop. You're not listening to me. So I'm gonna make you stop.
That's right. And so that's the lesson that you hopefully learn. So I'm telling you guys now, if you haven't learned this one, your gut is so valuable. It's like a weather stick. It's always telling you if it's right or wrong, and you got to pay attention. Women especially, I find that we don't listen. Sometimes, Paul. So anyways, I made a lateral move. I got into another music related business. It was the same problem. And finally my dad had it. And he said to me one day, I was crying and I used to smoke a lot because I love smoking. So I was this toxic ball of unhappiness. And my dad said, you can't work for other people. There's no shame in that. Right. Mm-hmm. So he keyed into something that I did really feel, but he also opened a new world up to me. And I was like, oh. And so my husband, then boyfriend, got me a book on how to start a company, Guy Kawasaki's Art of the Start. I'm sure a lot of people have read it. Yeah, it's a great book. I met Guy before I knew about his book at South by Southwest this is a long time ago, maybe 15 years ago. But anyway, so right in the first chapter or second chapter, Guy says, don't make a plan, just get started. So then I put down the book because I was like, well, I don't need this. Obviously, I just have to get going.
I love it.
I know, right? And I was reading a self-help book as well because I was just really, was trying everything I could to figure out what was wrong with me. And, if all the medicines and Eastern Western things weren't working, then maybe I needed a mindset shift, So I was sort of begrudgingly doing these things. And then also, another catalyst. These are all the catalysts. Sometimes the world just delivers you the right things at the right time, but you have to also be open to seeing them, to understanding them and hearing them or going through the door. Right. So, the next day, my first angel investors met me to hand deliver a product that normally they would mail. And I didn't know they were angel investors. They wanted to meet me because they were fans of my XM channel. Yeah, they're my fans. And they were like, we love you. Let's start a company. Here's $50,000. We didn't know what we were going to do. Didn't matter to them, right?
We didn't know it was going to be ice cream or AI. Let's do it.
Yeah. We didn't know any of those things, and that's part of so I was really lucky and it taught me a lesson. It reminded me that the leaders that I had the privilege of being a mentor to in the past always let me run, right? Like I'm a wild horse and they just let me run. And that's what Al and Scott did too. They didn't care what we did because they just trusted me to do it, which is an amazing skill. And, Fab, you were asking about the culture at Lately off air earlier. And this is something I try really hard to replicate with my team. And it's hard because they'll tell you, like, I can be a bitch and I can be bossy for sure. Somebody has to be. And I can totally nitpick about things, but I sometimes to my own detriment, I let people be very autonomous because it's how I want to be treated, I
have a question for you, Kate. You're going in a direction I find very interesting. So you're talking about culture and, of course, everyone has days where, I talk to my wife, talk not to my clients, but talk to pretty much everyone else. And, some days I'm a total asshole. And some days I'm a nice guy. Some days I'm neurotic. Some days I'm calm. I forget who it is, but there's a big financier, and I think he's in New York, who said he expects a lot of criticism from his people. He wants criticism, and if he doesn't, and they openly criticize each other, not to tear each other apart, not in a catty way, but they'll be brutally honest because he's always felt that if you're not brutally honest, you won't grow. Do do you do this with your team, or like where are you on that scale? Like,
You know, I think they're a little bit afraid of me, but Lauren isn't, though. Lauren will tell me on her own, like, hey, you know, you need to let up on us. You know, we're doing our best. And then my co-founders too are really great about, especially if I ask them, you know, and I do ask a lot. I mean, that's the thing I find is people are more reluctant to just tell you when you're the boss, but if you ask them, they will give you an honest answer. Or my team, I feel like they do. So, and I'm grateful for that, especially because we F up all the time. I mean, I personally do. I just broke a whole bunch of stuff. And we're trying to fix it, and I feel like we have fixed it, but we don't know yet, or we have to wait to see how, you know, if it catches up with us. But, and you can't, whether it's somebody giving you a criticism or whether you discovering it on your own, you can't cry about the spilt milk. You just have to, you know, you just stab your eyeballs with a fork for like 5 seconds, and then you have to get on with it, because, you know, it's the fire still burns, right? Yeah. By the way, go ahead.
Do you think we forget sometimes to learn from failure too? Like people forget that you have to fail to grow sometimes. Like you can't always get it right the first time, right? You have to.
Yeah. I call it falling up. So like versus falling down, and giving your staff the permission to do that, right? But also giving yourself the permission to do that. Meaning, like, it's very cliche, but every failure is the step up, is the step forward. You know. Yeah, I mean, if it's not, you should not be a CEO, right? That's the deal, because that's the stomach it takes. I mean, there are going to be so many failures that you know about, and a bunch that you don't, and it seems to me often that they come in waves. So Chris, who's just saying hello from New York, so he was being interviewed. He works for me and is my friend, and somebody asked him, "Hey, what's it like working for a startup?" And Chris said, "Awful, awful, awful." Oh, some good news.
Cool. Listen, I wanted to hop in because, you know, I know we're supposed to talk about sales and marketing, but this is super interesting. But on the topic of
the Joe Rogan version, we don't really. We're going to be talking here for like 4 hours. Okay, keep going.
You know, talking about culture, and we talked about this offline, and so and I mentioned it in the intro. I am a customer of Lately's, and when I first heard about it, I thought it was like just a cool product, and I wanted to try it out. And I spoke to Lauren, and she's amazing, and I was like, okay, let's just try it out. And but what really like hit me was like how you treat your customers, like how engaging you are with your customers. You know, there's a whole Slack channel, and just one like tiny side story, you know, like obviously Lately is growing, right? So at the beginning I felt I knew everybody. Now I'm like, oh wow, there's a whole bunch of people. But you just released a feature which was super important to me, which is posting videos to personal LinkedIn profiles. And I mean, Lauren actually reached out to me and said like, hey, you know, I don't know if you saw this, but you should. And I felt like, wow, like you guys are growing so much. But she, you know, able to remember that that was a feature that was super interesting for me from months and months and months ago when we first talked about it. So in terms of culture, like how did you build this customer first, let's call it that, culture mentality? Like, was that on purpose? Was that just meant to happen?
Yeah, that makes me feel so proud. Well done, Lauren. She's the best, you know. It was intentional, because when you're small, the only way is the hard way. I mean, that's just it, right? And we knew from the beginning that because we are marketers, that marketing, you have to start marketing early. It takes a long time to build that base, right? It's the most powerful tool in your toolkit, because there's nothing worse than needing to market and you don't have a network set up. Then you're screwed, right? So you have to set that standard and lay the ground for it. But I thought about building a culture versus building a company, because I worked at XM, I worked at IBM, and I worked at a lot of small companies too. And I remember how bad it felt when people shit all over you at work. You know, sometimes once in a while when I'm in a really stressed out place, I actually catch myself doing that to my team or teammate. and then I feel terrible about it, and I have to apologize, which I hate doing. But I really try to, if it can't be from me, I try to create other leaders where they're creating the environment where everybody is thinking just like how Lauren treated you, right? So it's do unto others. It's the golden rule. Like, this is how we all want to live. It's so corny and cheesy, but if I treat my staff this way, then they're going to treat each other that way, and they're going to treat you that way. There's an end game. It's not just be nice. It's build evangelists, right? So if I build an evangelist internally, then they're all championing the company and championing me. I need them to champion me. This is a lonely, very, very difficult road. I get punched in the face every day, multiple times a day, right? I rely on them to lift me up when I'm falling, and I fall a lot, and I need them. I hate the word need, because need is needy, but I need them. And we need you, right? This is that two-way street we talked about before. Now, if I think about making you an evangelist versus a customer, I'm going to get so much more out of you.
Yep. Okay, you see a few things in there that are really interesting that I want to hold them in. Sorry, Fab, I'm jumping in as usual. I'm hogging. You said it's hard for you to apologize. I want to from a business perspective, if it's a personal thing, it's fine. And I also heard a quote from, and I want your reaction on this. I heard a quote from Richard Branson. It's very simple. He said, "Take care of your staff and your people. They will take care of your clients." Now, in the past, you've always heard, the North American way, because Canada's in there too, client comes first, do what you got to do, fuck your employees, but real, I personally really like that Richard Branson quote. I want to know your opinion on that, and tell me afterwards. I want to come back. I don't want to forget that. What do you mean by it's hard for you to apologize?
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're good at this. So yes, you're right. I agree with you about the Branson quote 100%. And I do this all the time. We defend them. I'll go to the team. I'll go to the mat for my team. I'm going to assume, sorry, Fab, that you're wrong if you're complaining about something. Like, I'm going to assume that they've done their job first. And I do this even internally. Like, so I was a line cook, so I know all about the kitchen versus the wait staff. Okay, I lived that. And we see it here internally. There's marketing and sales, right? There's sales and customer service. There's customer service and product team. And we don't really have conflicts, but certainly we have communication challenges. Like, these people think they're doing it all right, and these people think they're doing it all right, and someone has to, talk it through. And in that scenario, I assume my founders are always right first. I default to them, but then I find out maybe not so much. But that's where I go first. Or if, a customer is. Once in a while, customers have actually come to me and complained about a staff member, and my first thing is to be like, I know that so-and-so would never do this. And so I go first to so-and-so and say, okay, tell me what happened here. And then this is a case where I don't like to apologize. So I have to figure out some ground where, how do I say this? I feel like standing up for myself and standing up for others, my people, whether it's my family or my team, is one of the most important things you can do as a human. Right? Standing up for other women or other underdogs. Like, I feel alone. You're going to make me cry. I feel alone and invalidated all the time. And almost no one can stand up for me because I'm the CEO. I'm alone. Right? And once in a while people do, and it feels so good. And I was just thinking about this today. I wish I could I want to teach my staff how to do this, and how important it is. Whether it's investors pushing me around, whether it's someone sexually harassing me, right? Whether it's a customer kind of just being an asshole. And, I had somebody, I had someone critique a word I was using. And I just went to the mat about it because I was like, you know what? Context is everything. Every word is valid. Every word has a place. It's how you say it. And what's the onus on you to understand what I'm trying to communicate, right?
Yeah.
Whereas people, sorry to go off on this, but like people just default to the cancel everything, right?
No,
Did I answer your question?
and it's interesting because you say, as a CEO, you need support, and correct me if I'm wrong, but yes, you're the CEO, but I get the feeling your company is not so much of a pyramid; it's a little bit more horizontal.
We're very flat, yeah.
If it is, then people should be supporting you because yes, you're the CEO, but you're also a colleague, right? So I get the feeling everyone here who's on the chat, all these people, I get the feeling would go to Mars and back for you, right? So
they do. They bleed for me, and I can't even believe it. Like, I asked them to not take a paycheck for me more than once.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're talking about who matters more, customers or my employees. That's the thing. Like, there's a lot of stuff we weather. That's the worst one. That's the one that I can't stand, that keeps me up at night. And it's because that's my failure. That's a huge failure, right? If I got it to this fucking place where like,
but
you know what I mean?
You're talking to culture there. You're talking to vision, mission, values, because you're building something, right? You believe in the future. You're not saying this is going to happen forever, right? So you're building something with your team. Fab's a client. He believes in this. This is great opportunity, but this is something building. So your team, because of that horizontal, they believe they're with you, right? So
I hope they do. I mean, we're building something, and everybody wants to win. And I think like it's hard because this is tiresome, and I'm having the stomach to be an employee of a startup, and certainly lately, it's hard. We're choosing this hard way. I'm regularly surprised when I don't wake up and somebody isn't like, I'm done with this. I'm moving on. I'm always waiting for someone to be like, I've had it with you.
To my next question. Sorry, Fab.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go for it.
So obviously you've built a great company. How did you attract people at first? How did you go and get those clients at first? What was your strategy to say, you guys come to us? Was it just we built something, we put it out there, or like what was your marketing / sales strategy more concretely?
Well, now I'll tell you how it works now, because then it was a nightmare and just bullshit, frankly. When you're in the beginning, you're just scrambling and you're just making up customers from you're beg, borrowing, and stealing.
He could be a customer. Bring him over.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy because you don't actually know what people care about. You think it's going to be this, and it's always something else, right? So in the beginning, you just have to be listening. But so now what we do, and let's just validate everything we're talking about, so people can understand why all this stuff works. So Lately sees a 98% sales conversion. That's what we have, and we get customers like Gary V, a 12,000% increased engagement. We dog food our own product on ourselves because we believe the hard way is the way. We also believe the human way is the way. So even though we sell AI on its own is just a robot. The humans bring in that magic. So back to, I knew we would talk about this. Keith Richards has a great quote, which is, without the roll, it's just a march. Get it? So humans and AI together. So what we do at Lately, this is the process, and you can do it by hand, but we use AI to do it. I'll just, not to be a commercial, but just to explain it. You connect your social channels to Lately. We instantly examine them and analyze everything that's gotten you the highest engagement for the last year. And we look at the words that have built the copy you wrote and the phrases and the sentence structures. And then we build a writing model based on what we already know is doing well for you. And we help you improve on it also. And then you can feed us long form content like a blog or a newsletter or a podcast or a webinar, video, audio, text, doesn't matter. And then we look for the writing model, applies it to all the text that's there, and transcribe this episode, for example, and pulls out the best quotes of the one-liners that you or I will say, and matches up the video to it as well in the case of video. So you have dozens or even hundreds of smart social posts that are essentially pre-tested to get you that high engagement. So I do as many podcasts as I can. because this is lead gen to me. I don't care if there's 2 listeners or 20,000. I'm going to take the content, run it through Lately. I have a series of writing rules that I've developed so that my team can apply the human to each post that comes out and just tweak it a little bit, contextualize it, help the AI along, right? And then we'll publish them into a drip feed out over time using all 40 or 60 or whatever they are, because that's how people digest marketing now, is long tail. Like, we're already, the mindset of this conversation is we are presuming that we're giving valuable information, legacy content right now. This is not disposable in the moment content, right? Which is how everyone should be thinking. And then we publish it not only on our brand channels, but all of our employee channels as well, because we're all in this together. Together we're stronger, right? One voice versus many voices. And then we watch to see who likes and comments and shares on our content, because then they are warm leads. We don't do any cold calls, no cold emails, and no paid ads. And then we talk to you. We find the common ground. We're not trying to sell you anything. We're trying to get you curious about us, right? You've seen Katie do it. You've seen my whole team do it. And then we push you to a DM and then into the demo. So the reason that the demo gets the 98% sales conversion is because, number one, the AI is so smart at figuring out what you're going to respond to.
Yeah.
But then the human element is in there, as well. So by the time you get to us, you're a hot lead, right?
Yeah.
Also, the product does make you go, holy shit. So that helps too.
That's great. I mean, it's interesting because I find so much has changed in the last few years as to how people do this. Like, even in the time that Fab and I have started talking about, marketing strategies and sales strategies, it's shifting so quickly. And, I don't know Lately as well as Fab does, but from what you're saying, it's just amazing. Like, I'm awestruck, and I like it. But I find, like, how do you stay ahead of the game? Like, how do you ensure, like, do you do any R&D? Like this works, this formula works right now. What are you doing to prepare for the future?
That's the question. So this is why I broke a bunch of stuff, because we're trying to go up market and we can see, like, this doesn't seem scalable, right? Like, how many podcasts could I possibly do? I am trying to get Alex to do podcasts and Chris and, like, obviously replicate that. But eventually we're going to have to do paid ads probably. We have to figure out a way to do this. We're going to have to do outbound. We just started doing outbound.
We can help you with that.
Yeah, good. We'll talk about that. And so we're paying a lot of attention. Of course, there's things like the algorithm at LinkedIn just changed, which actually killed my leads, because we all comment on each other's stuff because we're a company and a team, and LinkedIn just crushed that on me, and I'm just, like, really pissed off about it, because it's making me less engaged with LinkedIn. So they're losing actually a voice there that was getting them a lot of love,
Right.
Just stupid ass on their part, but whatever. And we're looking at, is Facebook dead? I don't know. I feel like that's an untapped thing that everyone's been ignoring, and maybe we should go back there and spend some time and see if we can revive that. Someone just said today the Clubhouse is dead. I thought Clubhouse was dead before it arrived, mostly because I've already done that radio thing. But as we're going up market, what I love about what we're doing is that it's unorthodox, right? I don't like cold calls and I don't like cold emails, and they don't work for us. They just never do. Every time we do it, we're just like, why are we doing this? Waste of time. So I'm very interested and excited to prove that there's a new way and that the old way is broken, and that we're pioneering that ground. And I'm really excited to figure out how to take what's working now and apply it as we go forward to this larger, we're going for enterprise companies now.
Okay.
Right. So one of those things, by the way, is sales decks. We don't use a sales deck, right? We don't, but we have one. We have one, and we've had one for a long time, and we've ignored it for a long time. But we decided to tweak it and use it in a way where we're not starting the conversation by walking you through a deck, where it's actually punctuating the conversation as we go through.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you say that, because what I say to everyone, the worst thing you can do is pitch close at the beginning and have a sales deck and just, You need to have a conversation. If you're in an outbound situation, you're having a conversation, you have to have that interaction. Sorry, I'm very
No, you're right. So that's working for us, and it's exciting. Sometimes we only use 1 or 2 slides, and it's so funny. The whole team, me included, like was digging our heels in around this. But we're working with one of our investors and advisors who is really good at going up marketing. She's like, keep telling them this, and I'm like, okay, we have to listen to this person. Let's try our way. What's the spin on it, you know? And so far, the last couple of weeks, it's been going super well, especially, by the way, like, you know, sometimes when you're giving a demo, stuff goes wrong.
Yes.
That's a great time to pull up a slide in the deck and be like,
yeah. Wait, hold on.
Yeah. But the answer to the input, what am I looking for? Like, I think the golden nugget in your question is like the how. You asked about how, and the how is just listening to you guys, right? Is that we give a demo, and we give a demo to small customers and larger customers. I know we can't do that forever. I know it's not scalable, but we still continue to get huge value out of it. Right? This is, we make you an evangelist. That's number one. We're still learning, you know, like stuff changes almost on a daily or every 3 or 4 days. We get multiple times a new piece of information gets validated, and you only need to hear it 2 or 3 times when you need to change or make a note of it, right? You don't need like a whole, I think this is a huge mistake that companies make. You don't need to interview your customers with a survey. You don't.
No.
Right.
I actually, it's interesting you say that. Sorry, Fab. I'm going to hog one more question. I promise I'm going to shut up.
The only thing I want to say before you jump in is like we have about 10 minutes left, so I do want to be mindful of, you know, everybody's time.
Oh, we can't go past our 10 minutes?
Actually,
we can't. I do too. Sorry.
All right. So quickly, you're talking about enterprise situations. So when you have someone who is a large company who does a lot of outbound, what's your approach with that company? What is it that you can do for them? Like, let's say it's a traditional company that's always done a lot of cold calls, a lot of cold emails. Like, what are you saying to them that suddenly, you know, lately can do for them specifically? Someone who's just very traditional, you know, old school, let's call it, you know,
I don't know if they're going to be my customer. I mean, because their mindset might be in the dark ages. But I mean, it doesn't matter if outbound is your MO. You still need content, right? Like you need the salesperson job is the pull, and the robot should do the push. Okay. So if you're going to be, somebody needs to. How do I say this? I mean, marketing. It's like. You have to make some noise. You still do, right? And you need to figure out what to say, right? So those word clouds that we have, Fab, right? So when Lately's building your writing model, it's keying into the key phrases and words that people find interesting about your company. And so we're seeing customers reverse engineer the AI, and they start with the word clouds before they create a podcast, for example, because they can see what ideas are curious. You know, our hashtags are way more relevant than what's trending on Twitter or LinkedIn, because this is what's trending with our customers. We can see it, right? Literally. And so number one for ideas, I find the blank page is that's one hell of a mountain to get over for a lot of people. Right. But I think like the other way we've worked with larger companies is through employee advocacy. So Lately has a syndication capability. Again, I did this by hand for Walmart and got them 130% ROI year over year for 3 years when I owned an agency. Forgot to tell you that. So the idea is, remember we talked about one voice versus many voices. So Lately syndication system gives a CRO, a CIO, or a CMO the ability to take the auto-generated content, the AI content, and syndicate it across every employee social channel they connect, right?
Yeah.
So what you get there is number one, hopefully you've built a company where people want to talk about you on social. If you haven't, you have bigger problems.
Yeah.
Number two. And you have people like sales teams who have to be on social, why shouldn't they be talking about the CEO's interview with Jeff Bezos?
Yeah.
You know, right? But maybe they don't know what to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's okay. That totally answers my question. Okay, Fab, I told you I'd be quiet. It's your turn.
That's fine. I just wanted to try to maybe wrap it up slowly. And I want to go back to this idea of the culture and then putting the company first, the customers first. I hear a lot of companies that they like the idea, but then they're like, but my investors are, looking at our revenue and a number of qualified leads and stuff like that. And they're like, how is putting the customer first really going to allow me to? So how did you go around that? Like, did you tell your VCs, like, this is this is how it's going to be? Like, how did that work?
Well, I don't have investors who are. I mean, remember, I'm a wild horse, so I don't have
Right.
investors who like are in my shit, because that relationship would not work out. But your point is, like, how do you zag when everyone's zigging and telling you to zig? And of course, for years, people have said to us, what you need to do is build a bank of SDRs and smile and dial, and that's one way. The other way is you do a bunch of paid advertising, right? And throw money out the window. Those are the only two ways in software as a service and SaaS land, more or less, And so, I mean, we know that I'll tell you a story. So before I went to XM, I went down to North Carolina to help start a radio station down there. My format is very unique. It's called Adult Album Alternative. So it's like the kind of music, rock and roll music that you might hear on NPR. It's Ryan Adams and the Talking Heads, and Bob Marley and Bruce Springsteen, and I don't even know who's new anymore that fits in there, but new and old, mixing different genres. And it's what I learned about that music. It was really interesting to me because because I have a music background. I was a classical pianist for 20 years. I understand sonically how music works together, but I loved the idea of the emotion that music evokes in us, right? And I love a segue. I love the theater of the mind. And I was very lucky in radio, and I grew up where it was live, and people really cared about everything. And I love it when people would tell me, I used to hate that song until you played it for me, because the way I set it up, right? And so the neuroscience of music tells us that when you listen to a new song, your brain must instantly access every older song you've ever heard before. And it's looking for familiar touch points, so it knows where to index that song in the library of your mind. And so nostalgia, emotion, all these things, memory come forward, right? Now, your voice is a note. It has a frequency like a song. And when you read text, you hear the voice of the person who wrote the text, right? And so it's the job of the person who writes the text to give you those familiar touch points so we can create trust and then sell you something. This is all the baseline of how Lately works, by the way. So when and this is a long story, but it's a short story. So before I went to XM, I was down in Carolina. I was at a station who had this new crazy hippie format. They had rock, they had jazz, smooth jazz, they had country, and this was new, right? And we're in Carolina, a little boys town. They used to have our staff meetings. We're at the strip club. I'm not kidding you. Yep, I did not eat there because I was like, this is kind of gross and weird. And I was on evenings, and I was also the production director. So the production director is in charge of writing all the commercials, producing them, and then doing all the voiceovers and funny sounds that ID the station between the songs. And I'd done that for years in other places. So in the evenings on my show, it's the Kate Show. I'm on the air, I'm picking the music, and all the stuff between, I made it, And so after I left, I went to XM, and my boss from that station called me a couple months later and said, hey, we just got the book. And the book is Arbitron. That's like the Nielsen for radio. It's the ratings book. It tells you how well you're doing. And I was like, oh, yeah, cool. How do we do? And he's like, you're number one. And I was like, what? Because this format is always like number 20, 22, 24. It's not well listened to format. It's not classic rock or top 40. And I was like, what? And evenings, I'm number one? And he's like, yeah. He's like, what did you do? And I was like, well, I threw out your playlist. Because I did. And I rearranged it, and I brought in my own songs. I knew the format really well, right? And then I had all my things. And so what I created was 5 hours of the robot and the human, and the magic and the mistakes and like the memory and all these things that I know, right? which is what I'm trying to do. And I was a fiction writing major before all this, so I know about writing, and I know about lawless writing, because at fiction writing and poetry, you break rules. It's part of the thing, and it's lyrical, you know. So that's why.
Very cool. All right. I know you have a hard stop, so do I. So I will wrap it up. This was amazing, honestly. I wish we could do this.
It was really, it was
I wish we could do this again. Thank you so much, Kate, for your time. This was great insights. Zig when everybody's zagging, or zag when everybody's zagging, whichever way you want to look at it. But thank you so much, Kate, for your time today.
Thank you, guys. Loved meeting you guys today. Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Bye.